What is up, guys? This is Max Square, and I know it has been far too long since my last video, but I thought I'd take a moment to explain what's been going on. So I actually got sick for about 3 weeks, and I lost my voice, so I couldn't record anything, and then right when I was getting better, my mic stand broke, so I couldn't film anything. And then on top of that, I had finals, but now I am finally done and I am on summer break, so now I can record a bunch of videos. So I thought it'd be cool to show you guys how to create a double exposure effect in Photoshop. I actually started doing a personal project where I uploaded a sketch a day to Instagram. So this was just kind of any different art project that I could come up with, and I thought it'd be cool to kind of jump into double exposure, and I actually knew nothing going in or how to do it. I pretty much knew you pick 2 photos and the rest was unknown. So I actually did a ton of research on how to do this, and now I thought it'd be cool to show you guys. So let's check it out. So the first thing you want to do is pick 2 different photos. I found using a person as the main subject, as the outline, is the best thing to use, and then filling it in with like a city or nature shot is the best idea. And that's what I've done here. I've picked this girl here playing guitar, and then I have like a city shot that we're going to fill in. So go ahead and select your subject and hit P on your keyboard to bring up the pen tool. We're going to zoom in here and go to the bottom and start outlining the person. Now you want to go slightly inside of where the end point is, so like her hand is ending there, so I'm going a couple pixels inside of that, and you'll see why in just a second. And you want to go through this whole process. I'm going to speed this up just because it's kind of a long thing to watch. Alright, so once you've got your subject outlined, you just need to connect your last and first points, and you can do that by hovering over the first point and then just joining them like that. Now, if the subject has a lot of stray hairs that are kind of floating around that you can't quite get in the shot, go around the main part of the hair and then we can fill that in later on. You'll see here that I've kind of gone around because there's a kind of like a clump of hair, but on the smaller strands I didn't include that. Now for the most part this will work because we're going to add a feather effect and that'll include most of them, but if it doesn't, you can go through and add another few points to that specific stray hair. Next, we're going to right click and select Make Selection. You can just hit OK. The default is 0.5 pixels feather radius. Next, we're going to go to Select in the top here and select Redefine Edge. And this is where we can smooth out a lot of the rough edges of the outline since it's using only straight lines. So you can go ahead and enable the Smart Radius tool and just drag this slider up. And you can see even just by dragging it up, it already makes the image look a lot better. But if you're not getting all of the subject that you need, you can play around with the Adjust Edge tools. Go ahead and hit OK, and we're going to copy this and paste it to a new layer, so then we can remove the background from the shot. Next, with our main subject layer selected, we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Levels. This will bring up a little graph for us to play around with, and we're going to set these output levels on the far right to about 180 or so. And we're going to bring in the black point on the left to about 50, and decrease the middle point to about 75. Now you may not be using these exact values, but the point here is just to darken the whole image, so just mess around with whatever looks good and just darken all the highlights. Go ahead and hit OK, and then we're going to select the blend mode of that layer and go to multiply. So it doesn't look too cool. All we kind of see is her hair and a little bit of her face, and then we've got the city filling out the whole background. So the next step here is to select your fill layer, which is the city in this case, and select the thumbnail of our outline. Go to Layer, Layer Mask, and then Reveal Selection. Now this will contain that whole fill image just to the outline that we created. Now the next thing we want to do is unlink the layer mask from the background image, because if we keep it linked, you'll see that it scales down the whole outline with the fill. So we want to unlink that so that we can move this background without messing up the mask. After that, we're going to make a black and white adjustment layer. That'll obviously just make everything black and white beneath it. And then we're going to create a levels adjustment layer, and we're going to pretty much do the same thing that we did with the subject image. So we can bring down this right bar here to about 180 or so, maybe 190. You'll have to play with this, whatever looks good for you. And then we're going to move the middle point here to the left. We're actually going to increase its value, and this again is going to be as much as you want to show of the subject. So as I go brighter, it's going to show more and more of the subject, or as I go to the right, it's going to darken up the image. So I'm going to leave it at about 160 or 1.6, excuse me. And then lastly, I'm going to go to the main subject and I'm going to create a layer mask. I'm going to pull up the brush tool. Now this is going to be helpful for removing different parts of each image. So if we select a black brush, we can actually remove the subject and reveal the background behind it. Or if we have a white brush, it'll show more of the subject rather than the background image. So I'm going to go to the black brush and reveal more of the subject here, and I'm actually going to increase the size. And then if you want, what you can do is add a gradient map, and obviously that looks a little terrible and creepy, but we can select into this and play around with different presets here to kind of get some cool color schemes. Now, because we're using the gradient map above all the other layers, this will actually change the fill image, it'll change the subject and the background, so you get this nice light blue color on the blue, or if we go to like a red and blue or orange, then we get like a nice yellow behind the orange. So it actually works all together and it doesn't look bad. Now, if you feel like the image isn't quite showing all that you want it to, you can go back to your subject, click into the layer mask, and bring up your brush tool again, and then you can flip it back to white to show more of the subject, or like I said, black to show less. And one last little trick I came up with is if you feel like your subject isn't quite being shown and it's mostly just the background layer, then you can select your subject and hit Command J to duplicate it, and then change the blend mode to normal, and then just delete the layer mask. And so that way you're overlaying the original, and then you can just bring back the fill to kind of overlay it there. One of the biggest things I've found is that the colors play a huge role in your end result. So it may take a lot of time just playing around with different gradient maps. Obviously something like that would look really terrible, but going with some nice blues or something really simple where there's not too much going on would be a nice idea. Now I also want to play into the colors that are already in the image. So my subject was pretty black and white, and the city was kind of brown and blue and a little bit yellow. So using some blues and some darks would really work for this image. So that's pretty much it. I'll put a download link to the project file if you want to play around with that, and I'll also link to the images I used, which were just Unsplash, but I'll put a direct link so you don't have to go searching through their whole website. Anyway, that's it for this tutorial. I hope that was helpful in some way or another. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.